The road to break into investment banking is actually quite long. Although the recruiting period itself is only a matter of weeks or maybe even a couple of days, there's so much advanced preparation that occurs. There's so much networking you need to do and so much cultivation of technical prep. And I would say nowadays that the journey really should start when you're a freshman. And this is because the recruiting system has changed, and it's going to change every single year. Back when I was recruiting for banking, which was maybe 5 or 6 years ago, a lot of the recruiting was concentrated into your junior year. And the dynamics were different, the incentives that the firms as well as you had were very different. But over the last couple of years, the top bulge brackets and elite boutiques have recruited during your sophomore year. Now this means that if you are looking for a junior year internship in that junior year summer, which is the most pivotal thing you need to break into banking, that you have to finish all your recruiting over a year in advance. So if you're a freshman, you have to start thinking about what to do now. You have to start padding your resume and start making those connections well in advance of even when you enter the interview room. So in this video, we are going to go over the key things you need to be aware of as a freshman. I would say if you're a sophomore, it's not too late to sort of get started on these things, but you have to work on a compressed timeline because, again, if you want to go for these top spots, they're going to be gone by the time the sophomore year is over. I think there's about 5 different things that you can do that will take between 3 and 5 hours every single week that are going to dramatically improve your chances to break into investment banking and break into finance. And honestly, 3 to 5 hours a week is not that much amount of time when you think about how much value you're driving into your career. The reason why everyone pursues banking and consulting and private equity is because you can make so much more money at the beginning of your career that'll set you up to kind of do whatever you want afterwards. The first thing I think you have to do is to learn the lingo. And what I mean by this is that you got to start reading finance newsletters, you got to start reading the news, and just be relatively up to date. And every time you encounter a new word you don't know or a new key term, just look it up and make sure you're taking meticulous notes. When I was a freshman, I ended up doing this and I compiled a huge amount of notes that would become very useful as I was building on that knowledge base. Now, the thing about news is that there's so much news out there, there's so many news sources that it can be overkill. What I would say is really just stick to a consistent schedule. Try to do maybe 10 to 20 minutes every single day so that you can really just understand what's going on in the market. I'll recommend 2 sources, and I would say these are used heavily by people in the industry and they're pretty digestible and well written. The first would be Fortune's Term Sheet. I think this is a super valuable newsletter. It's completely free and it covers all the main private equity deals as well as the major deals that are happening in the market. The other newsletter that I like as a complement is by Axios, written by Dan Primack. I think it's another good, just general market primer that will help you understand more about the market. And if you stick to this kind of schedule, if you read every single day, you'll slowly internalize what's happening in the market and develop your own opinion. And I think the goal of reading these newsletters really is to make sure you have an opinion about just the general economy and a couple of key stocks. Similarly, you need to be spending time trying to learn the firms that actively recruit from your school. Recruiting for investment banking is very school-oriented, it's very alumni-centric. So what you need to do is go on LinkedIn, look at all the past alumni from your school that have broken into investment banking. No one else is going to do this work for you, you need to find out for yourself and just literally check where everyone has gone. You want to know the exact groups, the exact geographies that consistently hire from your school. A lot of the times it will be these alumni relationships or club relationships. And if you have that intel, it's going to put you in a huge information advantage because that informs who you're going to reach out to. One really good way to distinguish yourself amongst a sea of resumes is to develop different skills, and you can do that using DataCamp, which is the sponsor for today's video. DataCamp is a set of online courses that's focused on teaching you data science as well as programming languages, and they've created a very sophisticated platform that walks you through step-by-step how to learn it. If you think about the future of finance and investing, there's more and more people that are going to have this computer science skill set. So if you're trying to future-proof your career, you should check out DataCamp. And you can get the first chapter of every course for free with the link in the description below. Alright, the second thing you need to do is meet the finance people at your school, meet finance people in the city you want to work with. I would say you should try to meet at least 1 or 2 people every single week. That could be everyone in the year above you who's already secured internships. That could be alumni who just recently graduated. As long as they're in a position that you eventually want to be in, then it's a worthwhile connection to make. It's worthwhile to reach out. We have a video on cold emailing and how to reach out to strangers, so make sure you check that out if the idea of networking is still a little uncomfortable for you. The fact of the matter is that every pretty good, relatively large school is probably going to have at least 50 to 100 people that are pursuing finance or consulting. And the path to break into banking is slightly different at all these different schools. So your best resource is people who have just broken in, people who know the nuances of which classes to take and which firms to look for. I would say if you're at a non-target, then the onus on you to recruit and to network is about 2 or 3 times more, because no one is going to help you. Oftentimes there won't be this 50 to 100 people, but it's your job to sort of find out who can help you. I think it's also important to keep in mind the people who will be evaluating you for your summer analyst position or your full-time position are going to be 2 or 3 years older. So let's say if you're a freshman, you're just joining a school, someone who's currently a senior at your school is going to be evaluating you when you're a sophomore and you're recruiting for these banking internships. So making a connection early on before they're too busy, before they are too caught up with work, can be extremely valuable. And just being that person who is proactive and was looking for finance opportunities as a freshman is going to do a lot to help your reputation. I would say you should spend roughly half an hour to maybe an hour trying to meet new finance people every week. This would include emailing as well as maybe a 30-minute coffee chat or call every single week. The third thing you should do is try to join the extracurricular, the club that has the highest expected value of people breaking into finance. Now, after you've spoken to a couple of people and you've networked with some alumni from step 2, you'll pretty easily understand which clubs everyone kind of wants to join and which clubs will get people into investment banking. What I mean by this is after you've cultivated the data from your school and you see where people are coming from, you'll start to identify trends in the clubs and societies that people were a part of. For example, at UVA, there's a tremendous hedge fund program that sends so many people to the top hedge funds in the world eventually. At UBC in Canada, there's an outstanding portfolio management fund that places probably better than anyone else in Canada. And once you identify these programs, these communities, you just should try your best to break into them. From my experience, I found that these formal finance programs tend to do the best for you. But after that, I think investment clubs are a very good place to be. You'll be exposed to very similar talent. I remember at Evercore in my first year when we were doing training and we were talking about our profiles and our extracurriculars, at least a third of people were investment club executives that ended up going into Evercore. I think investment clubs are a very time-tested way to break into banking. You expose yourself to valuation, you expose yourself to the market and investing principles, so I think it's a good place to be. After that, I would say stock pitch competitions, certain fraternities, and these sort of finance educational clubs are all really good places to be as well. The fourth thing I think you should do is start to learn your technicals. A lot of people recommend that you just wait until the beginning of interview season to start preparing, but in my opinion, that information isn't going anywhere. There's kind of a discrete amount of stuff you need to know for finance interviews, and you may as well learn it earlier because some principles can take a little bit of time to fully understand. Now, to set a benchmark, by the end of your freshman year, I think you should try to build at least one stock pitch. Now, maybe you could do this for stock pitch competition or having written an article for Seeking Alpha. Just try to create one investment thesis that you fully flesh out and that you really kind of believe in. I think the other thing you should try to do is try to build at least one simple discounted cash flow. It can be just like 30 or 40 lines in Excel. It doesn't have to be complicated, but you should at least try one. Because I remember when I first tried to learn modeling, there's such a high skill curve to learn Excel that it's really important that you try to start early. Just know that you're going to be uncomfortable manipulating numbers and you won't know what a lot of buttons do, but it's important to try to get that out of the way as early as possible. I think by the end of your freshman year, you should try to understand the major categories of valuation, so how to do a DCF, how to do comps and precedent transactions. Relatedly, you should also try to understand the time value of money. And the last thing I would say is the interest shield on debt. I would say you should spend maybe 30 minutes every single week reading through kind of like finance textbooks, reading good blog posts, watching videos, and kind of just educate yourself on what the technicals really are. And the last thing I would say you need to do, and it's becoming more and more important as recruiting gets earlier and earlier, but you need to get your first internship. It's obviously better if you're working somewhere in finance for a broker or an investor or a pension fund. But as long as you're doing something by computer with kind of a traditional business, then you should be in decent shape. It's really not easy getting something as a freshman, but it's becoming more and more important. So you need to be more aggressive when you reach out. Just boil the ocean, reach out to tons of different alumni and different people. I'll tell you from my experience, I worked for free at a tech startup, and I also worked at my friend's phone store. So it doesn't really have to be glamorous, but you need to get something on your resume that you can kind of speak about and hopefully spin into a reason why you want to do investment banking. So all in all, I think this is going to take you maybe 3 to 5 hours every single week. And I want to stress that it's much more important to be consistent about your practice as opposed to trying to cram everything into a short period of time. Do your best to find mentors and people that will be invested in your success because because that's what's going to help in the long run. So I do hope this video was helpful for you. Thank you so much for watching and helping me grow this channel. You can check out a bunch of different helpful blog posts as well as our courses at peakframeworks.com. Please remember to subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next one.